brand and business breakdown, Nicky and Moose, it was just too long. And we've been going back and forth and everything like that. I got input. And legitly, we're just calling this Nicky and Moose. We're going to keep this super plain. I'm Nicky. That's Moose. Whatever I said. That way. Yeah, that way. That's Moose. We're just going to keep it really simple. It leaves us opportunity to go whatever direction we want to go. So if this forms into a different title based off y'all, we're here for it. But look, let's get into this intro.
2 kids from Queens, cut from a different cloth. Now joining forces, helping you to elevate your personal brand. Yeah, I'm talking about Nicky and Moose, bringing you a never-before-seen perspective into the mindset, the mentality, the behaviors, the driving force, but more importantly, the stories behind the people and brands that you know and love the most.
And of course, this episode is powered by Ecamm Live. Shout out to Ecamm Live and through our whole journey. Whether you are streaming, whether you're recording, whether you're doing podcasting, presenting, Ecamm Live could do it all. And I'm talking about recording your Zoom calls. It could do video isolation, audio isolation, transitions, everything. And we're giving away 14 days for free if you go to www.nickyandmoose.com/ecamm. That's ECAMM for that 14-day trial. Moose, how we feeling? What we doing?
Man, things are good, man. Things are good. Feeling pretty good. A little over, well, yeah, at this point, halfway through, the month of fast. So things are
How's that going?
Moving pretty good. Really good, man. It's always a special time. I've been saying that this year because the fasting time period is shorter, meaning like the sunrise to sunset. We're out of the summer months. If you remember a couple years ago when Mama Nix used to look and be like, "Is he okay? Why does he look pale?" It's because the fast was closer to 16 and 17 hours. But now it's only about 13 and a half. It's not, not terrible. So you got to look for different ways to still ignite the spiritual development aspect of it. Because, like when you just going into those wee hours at 14, 15, it's like, okay, this is something else. Like you can't help but feel it. So this one, you just got to be a little bit more intentional. And that's really been my lesson for, the week. I am not watching as much media or entertainment, so no real shows or anything to update on, just because trying to focus. And I think that's a big lesson for a lot of us to take. Like sometimes, yes, you want to study, you want to read, you want to research, you want to look to movies and documentaries and other pieces or things in general for inspiration. But sometimes I think there's a season where you just need to cut off all the noise and just see what your own body and your own mind will come up with without any external inspiration or external images and things being given to you. So that's kind of the mode that I've been in really the last 7 or 10 days or so. And it's a good time, man. It's a good time. So, I've always said it. Ramadan is one of my favorite times of the year. I finish and I'm like, I kind of wish this was the whole year, but obviously it wouldn't be as special if it was the whole year. So I guess it makes sense. But no, other than that, man, things are grooving.
Have you gotten your breakthrough yet? You normally have this one clarity situation going on.
Yeah, not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, not yet. I think the last year it came to me on like day 27. So hopefully it won't take that long this time around. But I'm just fully submitted right now. Like, all right, whatever needs to happen is what happened. Yeah.
What is one thing you are doing differently this year that you haven't done in the past years?
Well, this is the first one where like I have an active child that is in the picture. So last year, she was born just 2 or 3 weeks before the start of Ramadan. Mm-hmm. So although I was fasting and she was here, technically this is her second Ramadan, but she was, sleeping still 15, 16 hours a day. So it didn't really feel. But now she is active enough to come on the prayer mat when I'm standing to pray and try to tickle my feet. And she does some incredible things that has me busting out laughing in the middle of prayer. But I think that part is definitely different because naturally you start to feel like, man, am I doing a little bit less? Am I not as focused? But it's not the truth. It's like you just got more responsibilities. And I think of it more importantly, I think I'm showing an example, like a different example. So it's not that what I'm doing is different, but I'm just showing a different example now because it's like you got the little one looking directly at you as you experience this. So hopefully she processes it. I don't know that she'll remember it, when she grows older, but it's a little something I think that that's different right now.
Okay. All right. I like that.
Yeah.
Shout out to the baby saying, I want to be part of the prayer too. Okay. I want to be. Don't like scooch over. Okay. Let me pray too. I'm pray different, but let me pray too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Let me in. Yeah.
That's super
Why you got your
dope.
toes out? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's too funny.
That's super dope. For me, there's a few things that I learned about. We'll talk about one in a little bit, but there's one that I had to watch, and it's on Hulu. And I doubt you watched it. Doubt you may even hear about it. Have you ever heard of Freaknik? Have you ever heard of it? Didn't think so. Don't worry about it. So
okay. The first word of the title lets me know. Maybe I definitely should not.
Right.
Yeah.
So the original vibes of it has nothing to do with the first part. Okay. So right. It started pure. It started very, very pure. So for those who don't know, Hulu has a really good documentary about Freaknik, and depending on your era and your generation, like for me, especially being in New York, we heard about it, but like I didn't really understand it. Right? I'm like, oh, okay, it's just a bunch of people around, probably very freaky. I'm not really. I don't know what's going on. Right? But the documentary, how they did it, shout out to Jermaine Dupri, because I believe he was a big part, whether he was a executive producer or whatever. But how they literally spoke about the origin of Freaknik to what had happened. So like it literally started as a bunch of college people during spring break couldn't get to the crib, and they still wanted to celebrate spring break. And there were certain songs that had freak in it, but had nothing to do with that kind of side of things. And they wanted to do a picnic. So they put freak and picnic together, and it became, and then this all happened. This was all in Atlanta. So it was all of Black college students getting together during spring break, chilling at the park. It was started really good until Luke came in. Do you know who Luke is? Oh man. So 2 Live Crew. You know who? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So Luke is in there. All right. So you kind of know that situation. So Luke brought the freak part to Freaknik, gone crazy afterwards, but it showed the culture of Black people in Atlanta and like how important Atlanta really is. Like, you know, us going to Atlanta, we know it's like Wakanda, as many people have said, and just the embrace and the empowerment of Black culture. But you could, what I like about this documentary is that it really showed that part, like that empowering part in the beginning, even when things went a little bit left, how some were still trying to, you know, not necessarily cover up, but trying to save Freaknik from the negative vibes that it was getting. And then, you know, this generation with how, you know, nostalgia kind of always hits, tries to bring it back, but in a different light, in a different way. How this documentary came up of like, yo, this was a very important part of Atlanta. Let's say it from what it originally was to what it turned out to be. And unfortunately, how it happened. But the fact that I didn't know, I don't pay attention to Olympics like that, but I guess the Olympics went to Atlanta one time, right? And so that because the Olympics was going to Atlanta, I think around, this was like 96, 97, something around there. I got to look up the exact dates. But, you know, the mayor and politics people were like, okay, this is bringing billions of dollars. I see you, Freaknik. You do bring in money. This is billions of dollars. So we going to try to like, trying to push you out a little bit. Just a little bit. You know what I mean? We're going to control it a little bit more. So seeing that was really refreshing because I never understood how important Atlanta really was. No offense to Georgia and everything. Like I'm from New York. So like New Yorkers are very full of themselves of just like, it's just New York. That's it. I mean, and then we got our rivals, Texas. Shout out to Texas. I have no problem with y'all. Y'all have really good food. But seeing how Outkast came up, how Goody Mob, how T.I., Killer Mike was in there, and just like really how Usher was in a record store during this whole time, and you saw the people who are icons and legends now, that they all had a part of this Freaknik situation. It's really cool. I was expecting the worst. I will say that. I was expecting just seeing things that I just don't know if I needed to see, but it was really good for the culture. So for anybody who is interested in watching that documentary, go ahead. I'm not mad at it. I'm not gonna watch it again. It was cool, but it was a pretty good one. It was a pretty good one. I don't know if you should watch it. I don't know if you.
I thought you were going to give it a different spin because you said, you know, politicians got involved and essentially said, no, we're going to take this approach over what you guys built. Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't want to give it too away like we normally do. Mm-hmm. But like what happened because of, and what I don't like, this is what I'll say. So when we look at spring break and back in the day, you think of like Cancun, you think of Jersey Shore when MTV was doing things, like all these different spring break editions, and they would normally be of the Caucasian style, right? So whatever happens with a whole bunch of them getting together, no one says anything. But when Black people got together and had fun, now granted, I believe that media depicted more of the negative than anything else, because there was a lot of positive that came about this. You saw community, it was packed. You think traffic is bad now in Atlanta? Like, even traffic was horrible because it was like everybody would drive there. They wouldn't even take planes. They would grab all their friends. Hey, let's all get into a car and let's go. Right? But there was a lot of things that did happen. Of course, when you have a large crowd, you have males, you have females, some inappropriate stuff is going to happen. Now, to sit here and say that didn't happen in Cancun and all these other things, there weren't sexual harassment and rapes over there, we don't know because it's not necessarily always advertised, right? But with Freaknik, of course, that got, a lot of negative looks. And so that's why, like, when the, let's say, the Olympics came through and was like, okay, all the politicians was like, hold on, we need to get this thing out. Now, I don't know if that would happen if the Olympics came to the other spring break spots. Would that be the same? Oh, spring break is going to be canceled. Now, of course, we're seeing it now with Miami. Have you seen that? Where like Miami's like pretty much taking a really serious hold on spring break and have curfews and arresting everybody and their mamas. I mean, last year's spring break in Miami was crazy. But I don't know. It's just, it makes you think like why you have no choice but to think about, is this a race card situation? Right? Unfortunately. Now, am I condoning any of the situations? No. Right? But to sit here and say that doesn't happen in other spring break situations when a whole bunch of people are not sober and are of going there literally in their prime saying, hello, I'm trying to bag somebody. Like, choices are going to be made that may not be the smartest. It happens. I think it happens in all races, all ethnicities, all backgrounds when there is a group of people and alcohol and drugs are involved. That's just what it is. So that's why I didn't really want to go into it, because it's just like, it brings that race card that I'm not super fan of, but you can't deny talking about it when they show it in that kind of way. And I don't know if they intentionally did it like that to make you think, because this is storytelling. That now, what I will say, I gotta give them props. The footage that they gathered from everything from like the 80s to the 90s, when you know that was like big camcorders. However they recovered all of that, kudos to whoever was in charge of that, okay? I know JD's getting a lot of praise for the whole thing, but whoever's on his team that gathered all that from different places and pictures and made that come to life, the storytelling, the voiceovers that happen. This is why I love watching documentaries, because you have to literally take hundreds of hours of footage and events. And how do you make that into an hour and a half, 2 hour situation? That is an art.
Yeah, for real.
That is super. I can only imagine that, like we've talked about in the past, the Kanye documentary, years worth. And you have, 3 episodes? And I think the episodes were like an hour, 2 hour long. Years. I'm saying, like, you got to give props and learn from documentaries from a storytelling base, from a how do we still make this relevant for you to even appreciate watching this in the present. That's why I like documentaries, but especially with this one where it takes that nostalgic feel, brings some of the rappers and cultural figures that was in their prime back then to now say the story now, different interviews, different voiceovers you're hearing. It's really good how they did it. I gotta give them props to that. If I have to rate it from a 1 to 10, I would still probably give it about like a 7.5, right? But it was really really good. I will say that it was really good. From that's some footage you probably don't want out there. Like somebody's kid right now is dad, mom.
That's hilarious.
You were at Freaknik, mom. Huh?
Right.
What?
Why you told me not to go to spring break? Yeah.
Right. So when I think it said it at the end. It was something to the fact like, when kids say, Mom, you don't, you don't party or you don't do anything. It's like, no, I bet you your parents partied harder than you did ever in your life, because the things that happened over there, what they showed, crazy. I'm just saying, crazy. But that's that. So go watch that. Another thing you should watch, and Moose brought it up before we talked. MrBeast, okay? MrBeast had a huge announcement where there was talks before, but officially got the green light to do a gaming show on Amazon Prime. And the payout is like $5 million. So the biggest payout to anybody, any game show. Now, how much MrBeast got paid, that's still up in the air. Like, people are saying 100 mil, whatever, but it's still up in the air how much he actually is getting paid. But it's seeming like he's getting unlimited resources to do whatever he wants. It's crazy, but I would love your view on things.
Yeah, I mean, just in the line of Amazon, it's funny because I saw something on YouTube today with Casey Neistat where he went and did an interview with someone who produced a movie for Amazon. Now, it actually started off as a different agreement because they promised him that this is a movie that will release on the big screen in theaters. And then once the movie got done, Amazon flipped the script and said, no, this is going straight to Prime. So a different type of agreement in that light, but it's cool because, Casey was just really being intentional about saying, this is why I left the industry, however many years ago, and focused on YouTube, because YouTube, you don't get anyone to control your creativity. So while I see this as a huge opportunity, obviously for MrBeast, because we're seeing this guy go from, the teenage creator that started on YouTube to now being this, phenomenal business person with multiple types of businesses and business models and amassing incredible wealth, but he's actually going in the other direction. So I think it's going to be cool to see how that plays out. In many cases, like in a partnership, it can go great, it can go okay, and it can go bad. So we'll see how that goes. But I mean, yeah, I saw the same number. I think I said 100 million on that agreement. I said, okay, I could see somebody saying, all right, you know what, I'll try to make this work for 100. Yeah, so yeah, shout out to MrBeast.
So did you watch that Colin Samir, the new interview with MrBeast?
Oh, they did a podcast together? No, I didn't see it.
Yes. So when the Amazon Prime announcement got made, they dropped a interview of him officially announcing the partnership with Amazon. And he also didn't admit to how much he got paid. I can't even remember if he admitted about the payout, but I think that information came out all together. But they did a really great interview. They had a whole huge feastable bar in the back.
Oh, cool.
The influence product placement is so dope because they had a feastable bar, then they had Prime, and then they had another little feastable bar. But then he hid Prime, and he's like, no, I don't want them to think I don't like Prime. I actually like Prime, right? So the interview was dope. I actually I wrote a thread about 10 things that I got out of it. I think I'm not gonna go over all 10, but a few things that popped out. One, he's now averaging $2.1 million each video, each YouTube video. And it seems like he's coming out with 3 videos a month. So you're looking at, hold on, let's do this math real quick. Hold on, 2.1.
73, I think.
6.3 million before paying everybody. $6.3 million being spent each month. Now, which is wild because Squid Games, the reality show from Netflix, was reported that it took $1 million each episode to make.
Wow.
That's what MrBeast, that's nowhere even near what MrBeast pays for a YouTube video.
Let alone a full production. Yeah,
Right.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
So I'm like, how much is this gaming joint going to cost you if your YouTube videos already cost 2.1 mil on an average? Now, some of them 3-4 mil, whatever, but on an app, I'm just saying. So that's one.
Did they mention a release date?
So he said end of the year, probably like September, October. But he was like, until I feel like it's perfect. But what I didn't know about MrBeast is that he records 28 days out of the month.
Wow.
Yeah. So you didn't know that either. He records 28 days out of the month. It's like 25, 28. It's like, it's still a lot. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. So that popped out. Another thing that popped out was the negotiation. So because we're not very sure how much he made, but what he was advising creators to do is when you're going to these streaming platforms, your season 1, you may want to take less because you actually have to prove yourself to streaming platforms. You can do millions because he's now averaging 200 million views in 30 days. Last year, he was averaging 10 million in 30 days. Now he's doing 200 million. Crazy. So even though he's averaging that out, it's still like producers over there are like, but this is streaming. This is a different game, right? So what he suggested was like, for streaming platforms, for whatever platform that you're going to do business with that you haven't done before, you may want to take a little bit less for season 1 to then say for season 2, give me my worth. He's like, that's exactly what I did. I took a little bit less for season 1 for then season 2, when hopefully for that to happen, then they'll give me my worth. He literally is going to be, he's going to be the guinea pig for creators pretty much jumping into the streaming platforms, because once that is successful, and I do believe it will be, once that's successful, other creators are going to be like, y'all see what MrBeast did? This is my idea. What can we work out? So he's going to open the doors for even more mainstream situations when it comes for creators. So I really like that. And then the last thing I'll mention is his research. MrBeast research is disgusting. So for festivals, remember, I think the last Colin Samir one, he was all in about, okay, I need to learn everything about the chocolate industry. And by the way, if you haven't tried his new festival formula, it's really good. I'm extremely hooked on the dark chocolate sea salt. And I don't even like dark chocolate. Really good. Just trust me, okay? But he researched the same way that he researched on YouTube. So he used to be super big in researching everything about YouTube, the analytics, the CTRs, the average view durations. If it was this way, it would make this amount. And so by being so like enwrapped in YouTube, he was beyond successful. Now he became enwrapped in the chocolate industry. And last year, I believe it was reported to make around 80 million last year, right? And so now he's like, yo, I'm researching all the gaming shows ever to see what the gaps are so we can fill that up. So that made me do extra research. I said, I'm not doing enough. But I must let me get my notion right. Let me get if I'm taking YouTube serious, let me really be engulfed and talk about it every single day. Like that interview and just seeing his growth with everything that he does, it starts with research and continues with research.
Yeah.
Until it's automated. Like he's not in the weeds with YouTube as far as the analytics as much anymore because he has that on autopilot. He knows exactly what works. Now he's actually slowing down stuff. So yeah, I can geek, like I said, I can geek out about this. Go ahead, talk. My bad.
I mean, again, I'm really just I love the concept of proving out the model and then coming back and really saying, hey, you really need me now, because for one, season 1 was successful. That means you have viewers and memberships that are tied to the platform that are waiting for season 2. So I think that's a great way for him to do it, or at least approach it. So I really love that concept because he technically has the right to demand what he wants now. I mean, he's not an up-and-coming creator or someone who's going to be doing something for the first time. Granted, yes, it's a big production house, or behemoth of a company like Amazon, but I still think it's very practical on his side to say, you know what, no, let's think big picture here and go with something feasible now, and then we can really come back on the next round and make it work. So I think that's a phenomenal, approach to it. But yeah, overall, I'm saying it. I just think it's so interesting that the creators of the online world are now making their ways into these production houses. It's like Tyler Perry, in the modern world, or whatever. Not trying to age Tyler Perry, but it's like really that approach, right? Like just going from doing things on your own to now doing it in big collaboration. So yeah, really cool, man. It's gonna be nice to see what this guy does decades from now too. I'm sure he'll be in it for a minute.
Yeah, and he's supposedly is building the biggest sound stage in, like, I want to say all of US. I want to say that, but he said a specific region, and they told him that. And do you know it's not to rent out, like, to Hollywood. It's only for his videos.
Unbelievable.
Only for his videos. I'm like,
smart man. You gotta reinvest back, man. You gotta reinvest.
Yeah, that's one thing he does. He's like, I don't know how much money I make because I continue to reinvest in every single thing that I do. That's a different person. That's it.
Yeah.
Shout out to MrBeast. Shout out to MrBeast. So, but people, I know you heard the intro. I know you're like, wait, what's happening? What's going on? So the meat and potatoes of this episode. This is our last episode, 182 episodes. First off, let me say that 182 episodes. Moose, when you hear that number, how you feeling? How you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, it's not seasonal. It wasn't like a seasonal 182. It was a straight 182.
Right.
So it's different if we'd done like 10 seasons, 18 a pop. It's like, okay, that's cool, whatever. But
no best of on the holidays.
Yeah. No, it's been a heck of a run for real. I mean, it's definitely something special to look back on. So it's a good way to send it off.
Yeah. So this is first off, let's cut the noise. It has nothing. There's no drama. There's been a lot of podcast drama. I don't know if you've been paying attention. There's been a lot of podcast drama. There's no drama. There's no nothing. We wanted to end at a high note, and there's so many amazing things that are happening in our lives that we were like, you know what? Before we mess with the quality of the podcast and do a disservice to the audience, let's just right here. Like, and here's my question. Here's my question. I was talking to Jeremy about it because Jeremy, of course, called me. Yo, what happened? What's going on? Da-da-da-da. Shout out to Jeremy Anderson. I was like, yo, is there a number where it is okay for podcasts to end? Is there? Like, because it almost feels as if like podcasting is for life.
Yep.
Like,
yep. It sure did feel that way. I mean, I know for sure looking back at it, there was a period where when it transitioned from Facebook to podcast, we were like, so this is just, it's eternal? It just,
right.
It goes on forever? Is this how it works in the world of podcasting? So, yeah, no, that's a good question.
Yeah, I told, I was like, the great thing about being a creator, you can write what you want to happen. So if you want to do seasons with your podcast, cool. If you want to go 700 episodes straight, shout out to Lewis House, who's in like 1,000 or 2,000 episodes. Yeah, that's shout out to him, right? But I mean, 182 is nothing light. So my first question for you, right? First question for you is, what is the episode that stands out that you were like, damn, I wish I would have done that different?
Oh, well, I'm not going to say the one that comes to mind because I want that to go away. You know what I'm saying? There's one in particular, which I think in the right context, I'm just going to do a crazy cliffhanger here. In the right context, I stand by what I said in that. I know. So many people are like, what is he talking about? It's okay. I don't want you guys to know, but I'm just clearing the record so that way at a later time, 10, 15 years from now, I can come back and be like, it's okay. If you caught that clip, just go to the last one because I talk about that exact comment and I'm clearing the air.
Oh, I know what
it.
you're talking about. I was like, wait, what do you mean?
Yeah. You got to really be tuned in to know because that's probably the only comment that I was like, okay, I get it. I understand.
That was tough.
I didn't mean to put that kind of comparison to it, but if you look at the reality of what's happening, which by the way, somebody else ended up saying it. I won't mention their name because then it will give too much, clues at that point. But they ended up saying the exact same thing. I said, that's what I mean. That's right. Exactly what I said. But anyway, I think, the one that still comes to mind is that Floyd Mayweather one, because that was like the first, one of the key transitions. And I remember it was like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. We were like, all right, just one more try on a refresh and let's see if this thing goes through. So that's one that I would have been like, can we go ahead and reboot that one? Just one time. Listen, yeah, just one time.
Listen, that was, so for those who, because we have some new, not necessarily day one. Y'all may be like day 82, right? So our first episode that we did for the podcast was about the breakdown of Floyd Mayweather. And when I tell you, we had tech issues out of the wazoo. I mean, like, I think we tried that 5 times. We recorded it 5 times, and I think full times. I don't even think it was like halfway through it messed up. I think it was like full times it messed up. It was so bad. It was so bad that, but some people loved that episode. We got still good feedback from it, but we were done with it. We were like, Floyd boxes, makes money, has a team.
Right.
That's it. Like, I don't know what y'all want us to break down exactly, because we did it 5 times already. So that's a good one. I think one that stands out to me is the one that we did at your crib that it took till 2, 3 a.m. to finish.
Yeah.
Here's a lesson that I learned. Do not do things on your own. Okay? Be the talent. All right? Just be the talent. Get somebody to take care of the recording situation if you can, because when you have to do the recording and the research and the actual doing of the podcast while still having energy to do all this, it's not really recommended. It's just not recommended. So be the talent, people. Just be the talent. That's all I'll say about that. Okay. Which episode stands out in a good light?
I mean, that's a tough question. There's a lot. I mean, I'm looking back over the last couple of weeks and I'm like, man, the last couple of weeks make it difficult to say, yeah, it makes sense to stop. Like the last couple of weeks have been really, really good in my opinion. So dating back
a lot of people are gonna be like, wait, why?
Dating back to last week, I mean, I thought last week's episode was phenomenal. And you got to think that there's been so many different chapters in this podcast, right? There's been the Facebook Live chapter in the pandemic era. And then there's been the breakdowns. Then there's been the introduction of trending topics and clips. Then there's been the introduction of no clips and just straight talking points through our own concepts, not to mention the live, not to mention the after show, which, by the way, is still one of my favorite parts of this whole thing. Shout out to everyone who
shout out to our Patreon.
Rocks with the after show. Yeah,
shout out to our Patreon.
Something about the after show is just like a really laid back, super cool, chill vibe that I've always enjoyed. So there's so many aspects of it, but I got to say the last month or so has just been really dialed in. And I think, it's just like it shows the evolution of the growth of everyone really understanding their space and bringing a unique perspective to the conversation. Because there was a time, and I think that, I don't know if it was done intentionally, but we almost agreed on everything. Not all the time, but most of the time. So we agreed on everything. And so it's like those kind of podcasts, and I think it's a rookie mistake in the sense that you think that that's what makes the conversation good. But in reality, it's not so much disagreeing, but just offering a different perspective. Like, yo, Nix, that's your perspective, and that's cool. I respect that. But here's what I'm seeing, or here's what I'm thinking about, or here's the thing that I think people are not considering or looking at. So that's really what I think has gotten really, really good over the last few months to enrich the dialogue, where I've used this silly analogy all the time where I say it's like table tennis. It's not these long mini rants and speeches, but it's me and you bouncing the ball back and forth and really having good dialogue, which is extremely difficult to do in a virtual setting.
Yeah.
When we're hanging out in person, and we did it a couple of times. I think we did 3 live episodes. It's easy. I could feel your energy. You're right there. I could tap you on the shoulder as a polite way to say, hey, let me get in real quick. But right here, you gotta wait. You gotta wait. And so I think even that, to get a feel for when I can cue you in, or when I can ask a question, or, normally naturally I'm not as talkative. So you always, I've noticed, gotten better at, or been more intentional to ask more questions, like follow-up questions. Oh, so what about, and you mean, and why? And so it's like that naturally makes me want to say, oh, shoot, okay, yeah, let me kind of go in a little bit on that too. So yeah, I think this last season or last phase has been the most enjoyable for me.
Yeah, I gotta agree with that. I think it goes, going back to MrBeast thing, I think just the research, just looking back at those early ones, I was so juvenile. Let me say something. First off, I used that button so much in the beginning episodes.
Yeah. People knew we had air horns, let alone a custom air horn after some time. It's like,
not even before the custom air horns. I said, you said something, I would air horn it. I would say something, air horn. Guess what's just be in the middle of something, I air horned them. We actually got a negative comment recently on some, this interview would have been good if Nikki was not there, because she was using the air horns too much.
Dang.
And I don't give a damn what you said. I don't care. What the hell?
He said, did you say not to air horn real
I was
quick?
Like, what was that, episode 40? Like, that was with the Terica thing. Like, what is that? Like, Matt Early, okay. I don't necessarily care what you think, right? So, no offense, but all the offense. But, so I know I was just happy to have sound effects. I was just boom, 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 boom. I remember I used all of them to now where I'm just using 2. I was like, y'all gonna hear these air horns. You're gonna hear the, oh wait, not that one. I don't even use that one no more. See, look at that. Look at that. Hold on. You don't hear that one? You may hear.
Wait, first of all, you're not going to speed past that like you didn't just say what you just said.
But I had 2 boards and I was going. I was like, I'm finding every reason to find. So research made me look at it and be like, okay, chill out. Chill out. I think one of the main ones, Moose said it very politely, like, yo, during our interviews, like, don't do the air horns. Don't. let's not do the air horns. I was like, not do the air horns. How are we going to transition? How are we going, like, granted, I didn't answer that. I said this all in my head. This was all in my head. How dare you tell me not to do the air horns? I did it anyways. I did not do the air horns. I'd listen. I could complain. Here's the thing about me. I could complain in my head and comply, okay? But I'm complaining in my head. I'm like, how dare you tell me not to do?
Yeah, that's hilarious. But I tell you, when I caught on to it, when you did your episode on Earn Your Leisure, and I'm there looking at Troy and Rashad, I'm like, there's something about this conversation. You did a phenomenal job, right? Content was so rich. It was authentic. It was amazing. I was dying. Yeah. Yeah.
So those who don't remember, I had COVID.
Oh, really?
I had COVID.
I didn't know that.
I had literally, I think I had just recovered. I was like, literally the week before. I wasn't going to say, no, I can't go, right?
For sure.
That changed a lot of things. But I was just recovering from COVID. I was dying.
Yeah. I didn't know that. But I was just looking and I'm like, yo, the Florida conversation is so dope. But after a while, I realized the intentionality of Rashad asking a question. And then the next question came from Troy. And then they just flipped back and forth. And I said, oh, it does help make this a lot more conversational. But for us, the air horns were often interrupting the guest, or it was just like, it was throwing things off. You didn't know what to expect. So that's when I made that suggestion. I'm like, yo, I think we should let's just go back and forth. Like you won, me won, that kind of thing. So that's how I caught on to it, honestly. It was just watching that live and seeing that dynamic. I'm like, okay, this makes sense. It's better.
I'm not mad at it. I didn't battle. I never battled with it.
That's true.
In my head, I battled in my head. But I never, I was just like, okay, let's try it. Right?
Whatever then. All right.
Let's do it. As long as I added one at some place, I was like, okay, no, that needs an air horn. Boom. And I was like, okay, because for me, not hearing any air horns, I was like, this is weird.
Staple.
This is not our podcast. This is not it. So that I was, like I said, I was very juvenile in the very beginning, okay? But it was like I grew up. We grew up in the podcast. I was like, okay, I matured now. You feel me? I matured. I'm good. So the air horns and all those situations happen. Another thing
internet. Said my internet.
Our internet. What are you talking about?
Oh.
Mainly mine.
Golly.
Mainly mine. Let's keep it a buck. It was my internet.
But here's the thing though, and I'm equally as guilty, because here was the difference between my internet and your internet. Your internet would not allow us to go live. My internet would go live looking discombobulated as all get out. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, hey Moose, you there? It's like cutting in and out. It's like, yeah, I can hear you. It's just terrible. And then I realized
the best was the delays. The delays were so good. I'd be like, right, Moose? You'd be like this.
Right.
I'm not done.
Oh,
hold on.
man.
Yes. No, that's right, Nick. That's right, Nick. Why did it take you 5 minutes? And I'm still, that threw me off because I had 4 different faces while it was happening and you didn't see none of them. until
waited, yeah.
until it caught up. So it was like you just looking at me blank, and I'm like, we not.
But I'm telling you, yeah.
What's wrong? Like why are we not talking? Are we go? Do I need to start this over?
My
delays.
biggest lesson from that.
Yeah, the delays
you're right.
were rough.
Yeah, my biggest lesson from that though was it wasn't even the internet. It was my freaking computer. Because I've been in the same internet service, same internet provider all 3 years, going on 4 years now. And when I got into the habit of realizing that, because you got to remember, like for me, when the pandemic adjustment, I was not ready for that. That really caught me by surprise. And so to run digital was like I was trying to keep up with a tsunami and not realizing that I was not up to speed on a lot of the tech aspects that are required to thrive in our kind of online world or online space. So making those adjustments, and I tried every single thing, but never realized that, you should invest in your own technology, like your resources, the things that you have. You upgrade your phone, but your computers, they have a certain lifeline, and you have to think about how they were designed or what you equipped them with when you first bought them, because that depends on how you use them. So all of the things. And then the minute I upgraded my computer, I remember I put a grip into this one, but no issues. I mean, I probably recorded from Egypt with better like quality sometimes than one of the ones I did at home on that old computer. So that was a big lesson. Like, it's cool. It's nice to get started with something, but please invest and upgrade your technology and your equipment because it's critical to the production value that you put forth.
No, that's a fact, because like I said, those delays were crazy. You know what? Shout out to your baby. Let's shout out to your baby. Because I really expected to hear a lot more baby cries, a lot more interruptions, and things like, I don't know if you have a pep talk with her on some, hey, daddy got to record. Give me about like 2 hours, 2.5. I'm all yours afterwards. You could go sleep. I'll give you this, whatever. But when I tell you, I think it was only recently we started hearing her. But like the whole year, I was like, "Where do you have a baby?"
Yeah.
Like I heard more of your wife than your baby.
For sure. Yeah. Now, and I remember when we first were expecting, you were like, "So, are you sure?" And it was like Nicky's way of hinting at politely, like you said, like nicely dabbling around the idea. So are you going to need some time off? Like, what do you want to do? And I was like, no, I think we're going to be good. I think we're going to be all right. But truth be told, it's not even me. I think it has a lot to do with, Rebelsi, because she's done a phenomenal job sleep training her. And this schedule ended up working out because she's in bed by 7:30. So when we start recording, and that's why when the sun started to set a little later, I said, oh no, let's switch to 8:30 because she goes to bed at 8. And so it gave me that time to, all right, cool, everything is settled. I'm good. I'm out the way. And then, we could do this uninterrupted. So yeah, it worked out. Shout out to the wife on the sleep training.
Oh, listen, that's, but I wasn't counting on that for the second one. I was like, okay, I'm glad, because the second one, I feel like could possibly even be better, or could be not better. I'm not gonna say worse, but just not better. Just like, Dad, I'm here. Hello, I get cute podcast, but I'm extremely here. Like, Nicky, sit down. You've paid attention to him for all these years. Leave him alone. Goodbye. So
you never know. You never know. You never know until they're here. That's what I realized. Like, you can have a great sleeper. Yeah, you might not. So we'll see.
So we went through a lot of different blueprints. What is some of the top ones that you've learned through this journey?
Yeah, I think about the importance of content coming first instead of product, because there was a lot of times where just traditional business training has you thinking that you first have to develop a product, and then you think about how do you market that product. But I think this journey made clear to me the power of content, and it's for everyone. It doesn't matter I don't care if you have a roofing business. I get hooked on TikTok watching some of the power washer videos, and I'm just there for like 3 minutes and just so entertained. Like, why is this thing have me so hooked? But it's like, it's so I don't know. It has to be a crazy effect, and I don't know how they figured it out. But all of these things are different businesses at the end of the day, and it's content to show you the result of what's happening. So I think my biggest appreciation in this process is realizing the importance of content, and that you don't have to wait until you have a product. You can focus on building a community. You can focus on building an audience. You can focus on building your voice. You can focus on building your credibility or your authority. You can focus on your niche. Like, there's so many different things that you could use content for other than product. And when you have that base there, I think about the advantages of being so much more comfortable on camera now. It used to be so awkward for me to like, my man, that dark hole, just looking at it, it's weird. There's no one behind it. Like, is there somebody there? It's kind of weird. So I would always remember I would be doing podcasts and I'm looking over here. It was so awkward. So I think about all of the reps that went into it to have this foundation with me now, that wherever I go, whatever I do, I'm just always going to be able to click that back on and say, okay, yeah, I know the importance of content. I know how to do this. I know how to do that, right? So I think that blueprint is really the most fundamental one that sticks out, that content first. It's like a content first model rather than a product first model.
Yeah, that's so true. And seeing how like the world is understanding that too, it's almost it's not even just content in itself, because some people may take that and be like, okay, content on the mouse. I have a mouse. Let me show you the mouse. But it's content about how can we relate to the usage of the product? How can we see ourselves using the product? That I've noticed that throughout the years, how it stopped being so salesy, how it stopped being so many promotions on it, because people have been so desensitized to that style, to where it's like, okay, what's the story behind it, right? What are the different layers? How can I use it? What does it solve? What is all these different things? So yeah, I think that's a big point. One of the ones that really stick out to me is the importance of systems, right? That, okay, cool, you can have content, but what's the back end looking like? What's the destination? Do you have a destination for them? And do you have people in place or systems in place that can take care of it? Like all the people that we've covered, the different clips and everything, they really didn't get there. Even talking about MrBeast. MrBeast, I think, even for the game show, he said he was going to hire like 90 people, right? 90 more people compared to the however many else is there. He has, with every thing that he does new, there's new people around it. Like when he wants to do dubbing for his channel, he actually hires all these famous people from each of these countries to do the video, the dubbing, right? So there's people to do the task and not him always do the task, right? And like there is, of course, that level of grind in the beginning of the like years or so of your business, of your brand. But then if you stay there, if you are continuously still doing that, how do you scale? Like, what does scaling really look like for you? And what I saw a clip that would pass through my TikTok, which I'm still interested to see if it's going to get banned, but where it was saying like, the goal now, even with content, where you become a production house and it's not even you doing the content all the time, right? Like people who are in personal branding, where is it to where you shift where it's not about you? And we've definitely covered that. Like, how are you making sure that this lasts longer than you and it doesn't die when you die? And it goes more to how are we scaling to where maybe one of this has to die in order for you to have a legacy brand, for you to really focus on the impact of your presence, but you not necessarily being present. So that's some of the lessons from the past have really taught me of just the importance of scaling. And it can't always, we've seen it too many times to where if you rely on your name too much, it will hit a limit, whether because of age, whether because of health, whether because of maybe the industry, it has a limit. So are you creating something that lasts longer than you?
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. I mean, I think about there is no scale without systems and teams. It's like if you don't solve for those two, you can't get scale. Like that's literally what allows you to scale. It's funny, I was talking with a good friend of mine today, and I was telling him that we were on a meeting, and I think I might have shared this, but it was a lot more relevant today because on TikTok as well. And you ever see the videos of this one guy on TikTok who goes up to people and says, "Hey, is this your Lamborghini? Nice Lamborghini. What did you do to afford this nice car?" And then he'll say, "Yeah." So he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm an entrepreneur. I made this." He's like, "Oh, can you tell me what's your biggest lesson for entrepreneurs?" So this guy had a jet. They go into the private jet and they have a conversation. He's like, "What's your biggest lesson or biggest tip for entrepreneurs?" He said that debt is not bad. You know, like borrowing money or the whole thing is not bad. And he talks about this story. So I was showing him the video and we were talking about it. I said, you know what's funny is that we grew up in this environment, or at least just our upbringing, to think that debt is so bad, you want to stay away from it. But at the end of the day, if you can turn a profit on the money that you borrow, plus whatever interest it comes with, you're in business. It doesn't matter what the debt is. And he talks about it. He's like, in the video, he says, if anybody listening to this, if you could lend me 1 million, 2 million, 100,000, 100 million at 4% or less, I'll take it. He's like, you don't even gotta ask, I'll take it. He's like, because I'm so confident at my ability to turn over money. So then I showed him that video and I was telling him we were on a meeting about a month or two ago, and a CEO that specializes in building systems, he was saying that when you build your business, yes, you need systems to scale, but you get to a point that when they do valuations of your company, they look more at your percentage of growth more than they do at your profitability. So I was like, what? That doesn't make sense. How is growth more important than profitability? And it makes, and like, as we talked about it, I kind of understood. It was the idea of when your business is growing, you're investing so much money back into it to help sustain the growth, whether it's fulfillment, operations, new hiring, infrastructure, you're buying a bigger space, bigger offices, more equipment. He's like, so you don't see the profit, but that doesn't mean that the business is doing poorly. It's just growing faster than you can, than you're profiting. So I was like, yo, that makes so much sense. But again, none of this happens without a system that can sustain it, So it's like just looking at different metrics that you think are more important than others, but no, it's like debt is a great metric. Growth is a great metric, one that's even better than profitability. And I would have me personally, never would have said that. But again, I understand the logic behind it. So yeah, to your point about systems and team, man, it's like they definitely go hand in hand when it comes to scale.
What is, and this will be my last question on this, but what was one of those episodes or one of those lessons that you had to sit down afterwards and be like, wait, like, I never really thought about that. Like, and it just changed your perspective on certain things besides the content part, but like maybe on business or whatever, but like really change your perspective on, and you were strong on it. Let's say this, because the content thing you could have waved over. You were strong on this thought.
Yeah. I honestly, I think my biggest realization is that you can do something such as a podcast and it not be about the money. Like, I think that's probably my biggest realization, one of my biggest realizations throughout this journey. And the reason why I say it is, you know, when you are being trained as an entrepreneur, you start a business or you grow in business, you think about everything through the lens of money and profitability and all of these things, because I'm an operator by nature. You know, like when I strip down my skill set and I really think about what I do best, and I have matured through the years to not try to be like somebody else or think that I want to do this or that. It's like when I just look at what I really, really do well, I'm an operator by nature. I think I can really help build from day one and function in an operational role at a high level. That's what I love to do. And so naturally, when you're in operations, you're thinking about what? Cutting costs, boosting profit, turning more revenue. Cutting costs, boosting profit, turning more revenue. So when we got on the podcast, it took a while for me to get out of that headspace of, so what's the business model? So what's the business model? So what's the business model? How do we connect it? You know, like that was the thought that probably stayed for at least a year and a half or 2 years. But in the last 6 months, I realized that the benefits of the podcast were totally different and probably better because there wasn't a business component tied to it. So here's what I mean by that. Number one, from a research standpoint, this was one of my biggest learning avenues, right? I think about, you know, one of the things that you shared, for example, with, I think the guy's name is Justin Welsh. I'm bad with names, but,
Yeah.
You know, just like that newsletter, email marketing concept and the one business model through Dan Cohen, it just showed a lot of different ways. So from a research and an educational standpoint, that became the thing. The other component of it is not being tied to the numbers. So it's like, it's one thing when you're doing your content strictly for the numbers, because you're still looking for some form of metric to say this was a success or this was a failure or this worked and it didn't work. And I get the whole data analytics standpoint because I'm a numbers person. So I like data. But still, when I got involved more and I started to think about it, it's more about the research and the education. And secondly, not or doing something that's not attached to someone else's yes or no. So this is not an opportunity or it's not one of those things where someone needs to say yes or invite you or come on, you know, to their conference or to their stage or to their platform. It's like, you can just do it for the sake of working on your craft, researching, getting better, and allowing the work to speak for itself. So it's like I know it's probably not the most straight way of saying it, but for me, that's what I realize is that you can use avenues such as this, like a podcast, and not have it just strictly attached to money, although money's important and some people do great off of podcasts. But at least for me, that was my realization. It didn't have to be about the money.
I like that. For me, I think the biggest thing that changed my perspective, I think because of the habit of always researching for the podcast, and especially when we started adding like the books that we were reading and the things we were watching. There was a book that I read called The Dip by Seth Godin, and my community, shout out to Deeper Than the Brand, has been hearing all about this, where because of my research, I look at quitting differently. I think I battled with figuring out when should this end. Is that looking like a quitting situation compared to other people and things like that? And the book really breaks down where are you quitting for during the dip, or is it at a dead end? Meaning, like, there's strategic quitting. There's if you feel like there's new levels that are going to happen, and like are you there too long and that it's almost feeling like a dead end, or are you at a dip and it's going to go up and you're just impatient, right? And so
That's
reading that book, because he even said like, yo, who says quitting is negative? Right? We live in this hustle culture, especially with how we work with personal development. Want to never quit. There's shirts, there's hats, there's everything like never quit. So quitting has this negative vibe to it where you look at things, and sometimes we are, and I'm not saying this for the podcast, but just in general, we're in certain situations for longer than we're supposed to. And you're not helping the situation or growing from the situation because you're not identifying when to strategically quit. It's not a negative situation. Successful people strategically quit all the time, right? But I never would have understood a different definition of quitting unless I started reading more. I had to go what I love about this podcast is every single week I had to make sure I had something to talk about. Right? Yeah. It didn't necessarily need to be new. Sometimes we'd do some trending topics, but it didn't necessarily always have to be new, but I always had to talk about something. So I had to make sure I read more than I ever did, right? Just say in this 3-year period, how many books I've read. I can't even count how many books I've read through this whole 3-year period compared to my whole life. You feel me? Like, yeah. I'm saying life, people, like 30-some years, life, 3 years. I read more in 3 years than my whole life. Granted, I never really liked reading. I was more of a video person, right? But shout out to audiobooks. Shout out to that hack with the Spotify. I canceled Audible because of you.
You already know.
Yeah, I canceled. I was like, wait, all I need to do is keep the app Audible, find out what is the recommended things and the top sellers and everything, what's new came out. Then I'll just go to Spotify and get the book over there.
That's it.
If y'all didn't know that, do that. I think Spotify gives you 3 months for free or something like that. Take advantage. Listen to some books because it's the major hack. It's super major. I feel so late with it. I was like, how dare I spend $15, $17.99 on a book, right? On one credit, when I can spend $10.99 and I'm having unlimited music and what it feels like unlimited books, because they do give you a limit, but I'm not reading that much. Mm-hmm. I'm not listening. Yeah. I
have it maxed out.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm now in a process of even though like my creative ways always needs to learn something new, but I'm now in a process of re-listening to certain books. Like each month I'm now going to re-listen to at least one, because I've realized I'm consuming a lot of new things and I'm picking up, and it's creating a great formula. Like how do you print? It's not a book, but there's this I'm even doing it with videos. That podcast, My First Million, with Sean and what's the guy's name? The other guy.
The guy's name is Chris something, yeah.
Yeah, so the Sean guy, amazing at talking about the framework of storytelling. So he did an episode in his podcast, but also he did this, like, I send it to you, this like hour-long one of storytelling. When I tell you, I'm listening to this every single day. Wow. Every single day. It's like an hour-long situation every single day, because I'm like, what I need to start doing is the same way I can remember lyrics. I need to remember certain bars.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Because that would be deadly if I could remember certain bars in instead of, but that's a whole nother different, deeper topic that I probably talk in the after show, of like the difference between how I'm really thinking about with content of, with music artists, they continuously play the song over and over and over again. With entrepreneurs, we drop a content and we move on to the next one, move on to the next one, move on to the next one, move on.
Yeah.
What are we making sure that is embedded in people's minds? That's a whole nother topic. We'll talk about it another time. But I will say, that's one of the things that I've gotten. The research that I'm able to do from the podcast has allowed me to think differently from something that was such a cultural thing of not quitting and things like that, especially from how I speak about content of being consistent and keeping priorities and things like that, and realizing like, no, there is strategic quitting, and do not feel wrong for it, because the richest of the rich do it. And so they don't feel bad. They don't think, oh my God, I'm quitting. This is like everything.
Like selling a company.
Right. You don't feel bad about selling and making thousands, millions, billions of dollars. That's strategic quitting. It's all how you look at it. It's perspective. Perspective, people. I mean, but listen, it has been a journey. We want to appreciate and love on y'all. Thank you for believing in us. Thank you for watching us, listening to us, getting into the Patreon, everything to that effect, sharing, even in the clips that you didn't really agree with, you still shared it. We appreciate that. Moose, what's next? What's next for you? What you got?
I mean, I'm at a very interesting point, man. I can't speak to what's next from, a content perspective. I know for me, it's a lot of building right now. There's a lot of building going on, and I'm kind of enjoying it because I'm reconsidering how front of camera work I want to do, if that makes sense. It's like, okay, it was a nice run. I think it's been, you putting it all together, maybe 7 or 8 years in terms of doing something that is front facing. And I still think I will be to some capacity, but I miss building. I miss building from the ground up. I miss like really getting into the weeds and not talking about the way to build, but actually building. And so slowly but surely I've been doing that. And I think I have some more opportunities to do that right now. So that's my focus right now. I mean, that's definitely where my thought process has been. So I'm like, you know what? Yeah, let's dump even more energy into building from the ground up. I'm going to stop myself from using my favorite word and saying diversify, but definitely just some more building.
You've been saying it for a while. You could say that.
Yeah, it's been a minute. It's been a minute.
Yeah, you can say that. So for me, I won't say much either, since he stated he won't say much. I won't say much. All I'll say is deeper than the brand. All I'll say is go to my YouTube channel. Okay, it's my name. Isaiah will put it on the screen or whatever. This is Nicky's content corner. That's all you will hear. You will know. That's it. If they say they wanted it to be a live show, we'll see about it. But there's a lot of stuff. A lot of me back outside. It's just follow the YouTube. That's all I gotta say. Follow the YouTube. It's about to be a movie. That's all I'll say. But listen, we gonna get this final final of the finals. Finals of the final words. Moose, final words.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you said your thanks, so I guess I gotta share my thanks too, man. It's been a heck of a ride. But before I thank the audience, I definitely want to thank you. You know what I'm saying? I think it's never easy to work with anyone but yourself for this long of a time period every single week. So I definitely appreciate, you know what I'm saying, us coming together and making this happen. I think it's been a heck of a ride. Yeah. And I echo what you said, man. I'm super excited for what you'll do next. I think you're going to continue to do some incredible things, you know, throughout that. So shout out to you, you know, first and foremost. Shout out to the whole team. Honestly, like Zay, Eddie, everyone who typically doesn't get camera time per se, but like without them, I mean, you
Isaiah
know,
was like, should I come on? Should I come on for the last one? Like, y'all not going to invite me? Shout out to Isaiah. He may just add a video of himself right now, but yeah,
Please
shout out
do.
to Isaiah. Shout out to Eddie.
Yeah,
We love
please
you,
do.
Eddie.
Yeah, for sure. Nah, shout out to the whole team, man. I mean, definitely made this thing come together in a phenomenal way. So I'm super grateful for, you know, of course, everyone. And then, you know, to the listeners, man, we appreciate you guys wholeheartedly.
Oh,
Thank
Nick
you for
too.
rocking
Hold
with
on,
us.
wait. Everyone say Nick from ETA. Shout out to you, Alana, because Nick makes
with
sure
the show notes.
everything is published. Alana takes care of the podcast and the podcast notes as well as the Patreon stuff. So shout out to her too. So shout out to the team. Okay, I'm done.
It's dope. That's it. It feels like a Grammy speech, you know, like when two people are just
Fact.
going back and forth on the mic saying, I just want to thank God first and foremost,
Right.
and my
First and
mom and my
foremost.
dad. Mom,
You know what I mean?
appreciate you back there.
Mom being our number one fan. Shout out to
Facts,
Mom.
Mama Nix. Yeah. This is, it's been a heck of a ride, man. So shout out to everyone. And like I said, to the listeners, I hope this has been an example to you all of proof of what you can do. All right. Like, you know, I always say at the end of the day, yes, we might be a part of the thing that you're watching or tuned into, but I personally don't like attention. It's not what I'm trying to do or what I care for. It's not the reason why I do what I do, but I do appreciate when I can serve as an example to somebody else of what's possible for you, you know, for their lives. So I hope that this show has served as an example of that, of how two people from two different parts of the world just so happen to fall in one melting pot called Queens, and they come together through, you know, another business venture, and they figured out and they, you know, put this thing together. So I hope that serves as an example. And then lastly, I'll say this, because this is really starting to feel like a Grammy speech, but I kind of like this. This is like a nice little flow happening right now. It's like, it's the last one, I might as well. But no, I heard this quote, man, that said that your ability to handle or your growth is equally tied to the amount of truth that you can accept about yourself. I was like, wow.
That's dope.
Yo, that at some point, your growth will hit a ceiling if you cannot honestly accept feedback or constructive criticism or whatever information people are feeding to you from trusted sources, of course. But you have to be able to accept the truth about yourself. It's not always going to be sweet. It's not always going to feel good, but you got to be able to accept that, because that is what unlocks your growth. So let that be that final word, and be out.
This is going to be converted into a podcast, all that great stuff. We had to get the name right. So, yeah, it's happening. So, love you guys. And you already know what we're going to say.